Oh, swamp now, left and right. No, 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 no. Oh, that's a big hit. It's a huge hit. Hello everyone, Ben here, and welcome to the first of what could become a new series on the channel, our weekly featured race. No cuts, more analysis, and 100% racing action from one of the online sessions we've completed in the last week. If you enjoy the format, leave a like or a comment to let me know, and of course get subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any races or guides we've got coming up in the future. To kick things off, it's the Great American Race in RaceRoom, a stacked grid of GT3 Camaros at the Daytona Oval. This is my first ever oval race, so it should be quite the experience. Let's go to the grid. Right then, here we go as we get ready to get underway at the Great American Race, the Daytona Oval on RaceRoom. We are lining up in 7th on the grid. Decent enough qualifying, but I mean, qualifying was all about getting in the tow, getting in the draft, and getting a bit lucky really in terms of where you were positioned on track. But we are now underway and we are squeezed right up behind the car ahead. As we come now round into the banked section for the very first time. I am anticipating this is going to be chaos. We've got cars to the left of us giving us a bit of a bump. We do have a kind of clear route up top, but look at the Camaro behind us coming steaming round, and we've already then picked up some incident points in that first corner. This is all going to be about getting used to kind of pack racing and how to get our lines right through the different banked corners and avoid contact wherever we can. You might have seen just as we were heading into the first corner, I lowered our engine map, our fuel consumption, down to the lowest possible. My strategy for getting through this race is we nearly squeeze off another car into the wall there. That was very sketchy indeed, as I was just finding my feet in the race really. Got away with that. But yes, in terms of strategy, my plan here is not to have to pit. You are really marginal in this ranked race this week on both fuel and tyres, and unless you run in a very low engine setting for the vast majority of this race, you will need to come in and pit for fuel. That will cost us so much time that I really want to avoid that if I can. So fuel management is going to be absolutely key. Another way, alongside knocking down our engine map to a low setting to be able to do some of that, is to try and get ourselves into a draft ahead of the car, in the wake of the car ahead, as much as we can for this race. That means the car ahead will be kind of punching the hole in the air for us, and we can actually use less fuel following behind. The thing you don't want to be is at the front of a train of cars for too long as the race goes on. So we're round now into our second lap. The pack is still pretty tightly together. We've dropped quite a few positions, and I knew this would happen, or at least I thought it would happen. Because we're running a lower engine setting, other cars are going to be going faster than us at this point, and that presents its own challenges because we're getting swamped from left and from right at the moment as cars look to try and find their way past us safely. We're now dropping right the way down into 17th, 18th, 19th position. That'll probably get worse before it gets better, because other cars are just going to have more pace than us at this point in the race. But it should, if the plan goes accordingly, come back to us later on in the race. So this is my first time doing an oval race full stop, as the two cars ahead get very close together and nearly cause a bit of a shunt there as we come now round into the back straight. So I'm very much learning as I go here. I've done a bit of reading before hopping onto the server, both in terms of the RaceRoom Discord server, but also just online generally, to understand some of the dynamics of oval racing, to try and equip myself as best I can, as our sister target Camaro there comes around the outside of us and just tucks in ahead. So that's going to give us a chance to get back into a little bit of a slipstream. As you can see, we are very much the cork in the bottle, with all of the cars behind us trying to get past us. I dare say quite a few of them are running on a hotter engine mode than we are at the moment, and so could very much do with getting past us. So try to do a bit of research to just make sure that I could race safely as much as anything else without endangering other drivers who were trying to make their way around. But really, I'm going to be learning this as I go and trying to respond to the situations that develop as best I can. One of the things that can definitely happen here is you can get caught up in somebody else's accident really, really quickly. So it's this really strange combination of, quite a simple race in some respects. You've got your foot planted for the entirety of the race. You really don't need your brake pedal. You're only making very gradual adjustments to the steering wheel to be turning left into the banked corners, and yet you've got to be so alert to what's going on around you. And kind of this heightened sense of intensity, because one mistake and it's game over. And look at that, just as I say that, there's a cloud of smoke and somebody has gone off there to our left hand side. You can see the cars in a really bad way there in the foreground. Let's go back and take a little look at how that accident developed. So we're looking now at the replay camera, and bang, look at that. You see somebody else had the spin and there was simply nowhere for the yellow and blue car to go, and he got flipped upside down. Let's have a look at it from his vantage point. Look at that, he's skewed across the track and bang, we are on our route. That is race over for him. Essentially, he's not really going to be able to recover that. So a lesson there in terms of what we need to be thinking about as we progress through the rest of this race. We could be driving as steadily as we want. If another incident happens up ahead, we're going to need some pretty quick reflexes and a lot of luck to avoid getting caught up in it. We're reaching now a kind of point of the race. We're about a third of the way in. And I've got to say, it was a bit of a test of nerve as well to maintain this low fuel setting. It didn't sit easily with me that we were now down in 20th place and we were still getting challenged from behind there as we make a little bit of contact with the blue and red car to our left. And so it was almost like daring me to put the fuel map back up so we could just catch up with the pack ahead, and I really had to try my best to avoid that temptation, because as soon as I do that for any extended period of time, then I'm in the worst of all worlds. Not only have I been running in a lower fuel setting for a chunk of the race, but then I'm going to have to pit in anyway because I'll run out of fuel before the end of the race. So occasionally you'll see on the left hand side of the screen I do just nudge the engine map up slightly. We're now running in 4, for example, but then I very quickly put it back down to 1 as the sort of reasoning part of my brain takes control again against the kind of nerves that actually we're going to be essentially cut adrift from this race and not able to make up those places later on. So we took now in behind the yellow and blue car up ahead. We've got a single car behind us by the looks of things in this little train. I'm not going to look for the overtake. I'm actually going to look to bump draft the guy ahead, and we're essentially now working together, the 3 cars here in this little train. I'm giving him a little nudge to just push him along the straight so he can go a little bit quicker, and he's giving me the benefit of his slipstream so that he's punching the hole in the air and is saving us a little bit of fuel. I am though getting a bit of an overspeed. Look at that, the first car's already coming into the pit lane as well, as clearly they've been running on engine lap 5 for the whole distance so far, and so it looks as if I'm not going to be able to stick in his slipstream because I'm just running a little bit faster than he is. I'm now on the outside of the corner, but hopefully picking up a little bit of a distant tow from the car ahead. He's now going to tuck him back behind us, so he's done us a favour on the lap before. He's now getting the benefit of our slipstream on this lap, and I'm hoping we'll be able to close up to the cars just up ahead of us. He gives us a little tap from behind and he's just pushing us along this straight. So again, another strange dynamic of these races. Of course you're competing with one another, but within little packs of cars throughout the grid, you're also having to work together to try and make it to the end of the race in one piece. I'm assuming that each of us here in this little train are on the same strategy essentially, and that none of us will be intending to pit in this race. So it serves all of our interests, not to fight over position, but to essentially help each other out with the slipstream and with the bump draft. Of course there are some risks with that. Bump drafting is something which can work very well, but if you get it wrong, if he were to nudge me on the corner of my car, for example, or as we were coming out of one of these bends in the wrong direction, then he would absolutely punt me off the track very, very easily, and I would lose control of the car. So again, even in this sort of stage of the race, which looks relatively calm, you can't relax. You're constantly thinking about the things which could go wrong, and got adrenaline kind of pumping to make sure that at this stage of the race you don't make a mistake as we head into the final third of the session. More cars coming into the pit lane there, you can see off to the left hand side, and we're now catching up to this group of cars just up ahead, and other cars are rejoining from having made a pit stop by the looks of it. So we're going to have some slow moving traffic up ahead of us as well, and that is going to cause all kinds of challenges because we're going quite a bit faster than him, but he will be getting up to speed as we go. So I at this stage I think, right, okay, let's just tuck back in behind this black car up ahead and try and bump him around the track so that we're not at the head of the queue for longer than we need to be. That'll help us conserve a bit of fuel in the meantime, and we won't fight him for position just yet. More cars then coming in on the left hand side, and other cars getting drive-through penalties as well. Now I assume that's because they've gone into the pit lane too hot and have broken the speed limit. Very, very challenging to get the car slowed down, having been running consistently so fast around the oval. To get the car slowed down into the pit lane, not easy, and so not perhaps surprising to see cars picking up drive-through penalties for that. But yet another reason why I don't really want to chance a pit stop through this race if I can avoid it. So we're now approaching a gaggle of cars up ahead, and we've got essentially a choice now. Do we go to the inside or do we follow this black car around the outside as he's trying to pick up the tow as well? We've gone to the outside, but it does mean that the cars that were following us are now on our inside, so we're sort of pinned to the outside of the corner. He eventually does relent on our inside, and we're able to then catch up to the other car ahead and tuck into his slipstream. So this group of cars now, we're just working out the order essentially and getting into a bit of a rhythm as more cars have joined our little train through this race. None of us really want to be at the head of the pack, so that's why you're seeing some of the jostling. Really counterintuitive. Most of the time you want to be out in front in the race, but it's not actually that advantageous here. So there's absolutely no circumstances that I want to get past this guy here. I just want to tuck him behind and allow him to do some of the hard work for us to just give ourselves the best chance of getting to the end of this race with the fuel that we've currently got in the car. So we're coming round now onto the start-finish straight one more time. He's going to stay out. He's not going to blend into the pit lane, so that's going to give us at least another lap of Slipstream, which is good news. The other sort of consideration, which I haven't touched on yet, but if you look down into the bottom right hand corner of the screen, is our tyres. I didn't find this too big a challenge, even though the tyres are stone cold, because we're just not putting any heat into them at all really, and they are wearing quite considerably. It didn't feel to me like that made the car harder to control. I don't know whether it has an impact on pace, but if it does, then it's relatively marginal. So although it doesn't look great in the graphic, not actually finding it too big a deal as we come round now into the final section of this race. We pass the slow moving car on the left hand side who might be coming into the pits, and then the car ahead of us does just veer to the left hand side there. I don't think he is pitting in actually. I think perhaps I just caught him slightly in the bump draft there at the wrong moment, and I nearly ended up putting him off the track. Thankfully he got away with that. So the two cars now, ourselves in the red target car and then the yellow and blue Camaro behind us, have sort of broken clear of that pack a little bit. I'm not quite sure what happened there. That has meant that I'm now at the head of the pack. It might very well be that the car I was following decided to get out of it and just tuck back in behind because he's more marginal on fuel. But this puts us in quite a difficult position really now, because I need to get behind another car. Otherwise I'm going to be super marginal on fuel myself towards the end of this race. More and more cars now are having to take to the pit lane. You can see then the green car just up ahead of us is going in, but then he decides to come out, and look at that, nearly takes us out. I couldn't believe that at the time. Really poor racing etiquette there, really. You shouldn't be veering into the pit lane and then back out again, but we managed to just about get away with it, and I didn't take my foot off the gas, so we didn't lose any ground to the cars behind. We've caught up with a slower moving car now, thankfully, so I'm going to just again stick behind him, get into the draft, and try and make sure that we're spending as little fuel as we can. We've got 2 minutes left now in this race, and given where we are on track, I think that probably means another 3 laps. From my practice runs, looking at the amount of fuel we've got left, that is going to be mega marginal. and at this stage I'm really not sure whether we're going to make it or not. More cars coming into the pit lane. He's going in very, very late again. He should be off the racing line at that point, so a little bit scary running past him. But essentially this is our strategy coming together now. More and more cars haven't been able to make it to the end of the race on their initial fuel. So although we drop back right into the 20s of this race, having started in 7th, we are now fighting for essentially those positions around the part of the grid where we started, and that's fantastic. So that gamble around pit strategy has definitely worked out. If, and it's a very big if at this stage of the race, we're able to get it back to the end of the race with this amount of fuel that we've currently got in the car. Still further cars coming into the pit lane. I think we're now lapping cars essentially, so we're no longer making up positions, so it may very well be that cars have found themselves having to make more than one pit stop if they've been running in the hardest engine mode all the way through this race. So coming now to the sharp end, I really don't want to be at the head of this queue. I'm trying my best, without driving dangerously, to get out of being at the front of this queue. I'm tucking over now to the right hand side. I'm really keen for one of the cars on my inside to come past here. I get a little nudge from behind. He's not coming around at all, and actually we're now back to the head of the queue where we had been side by side. We're coming round now into what will essentially become the end of our penultimate lap. We get a little bit of a squeeze from behind there, and this now coming over the line onto the final lap is going to be hugely tight as to whether we can get this car home with the amount of fuel in it that we've currently got. We're coming now into the bank corner for the last time here, the first one on the lap, and we get a little nudge from behind and we nearly lose it completely. Wow, that was nearly an absolutely huge accident, but we just held on to it. We did though, crucially, pick up some more incident points. So although through the middle section of this race we managed to stay entirely clean, we're now very, very marginal on the number of incident points we've got before we'll go through the limit, which I think is 30. And if we go through the limit, then I think we get disqualified. So we get another bump from behind, and look at that, unbelievably just a regular bump draft, and it looks as if we've been black flagged with just a straight away to go. We've been black flagged and we crossed the line in 7th place on track, but it now looks as if we're going to be disqualified from this race, and I can't quite believe that. So we came home in 7th. Thankfully, because we're a number of laps ahead of other cars, it looks as if we've been classified in 10th, but that feels very, very harsh to me, that for that kind of manoeuvre, ultimately we just accumulated too many incident points. So really, really challenging race overall, very, very intense throughout, and it just goes to show, alongside fuel and alongside tyres and alongside track position, you absolutely have to be thinking about incident points throughout, and being really, really careful in terms of how you make contact with other cars, because bump drafting is a feature of that race. But you saw there at the end, we got a little tag from behind, nothing unusual in that, and that was enough to put us over the threshold, and that is my first black flag racing online, full stop, never mind in RaceRoom. So we're going to pay the penalty on that front in terms of reputation points, I'm sure. Nevertheless, despite that, a really enjoyable first oval race for me, and notwithstanding the black flag at the end, not too dissatisfied with where we came home. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the race. I hope you've enjoyed this extended format. If you have, leave a like and a comment below. Get subscribed to the channel so you don't miss a race that we've got coming up in the future, and I will see you next time.